Ladies and gentlemen, we're pleasure to put out another episode of Aiden Meets Interesting People. If you haven't had a chance to get back and have a look at some of the other ones we've done, there's some great ones. Check it out on YouTube or Facebook. We're about to launch into another one. I've got a newfound friend of mine, Tim Martin, the Tower Hill Bee Man.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm going all right, thanks, mate.
How many bee hive-related podcasts have you done so far in your life?
Look, Aiden, I think I might have lost count, matey. You finally got into the front of the line, but no, not really. Never done anything like this before.
No.
I've done a few little brief interviews and
Have you?
things.
What
so,
for? What
but
sort of
nothing
things
like
for? What have
this.
you done
Oh, we
interviews
did
for?
one for Moyne Shire Council on the small business Tower Hill Beekeeping, just trying to get a bit of word out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we're gonna dispel the elephant in the room first. I want to know, Tim Martin, beekeeper man, is it true that by all known laws of avionics that a bee should not be able to fly because its fat little body and its small little wings are too hard to lift it off the ground?
Yeah, right. So there's a curveball for a first question. Thanks, Aiden.
Yeah. So I wrote you the questions, but there's some questions that I write that I don't send you.
You've thrown in some imprompts. So, look, I'm racking my memory. I think I've heard something along the lines of that being true, Aiden, but I can tell you they fly pretty good to me. Something about their incredible velocity of the flapping of their wings gets them through, but
There we go. All
they
right.
certainly seem to be slower on their way back from their foraging trips than what they do on their way there.
So the documentary that I watched called The Bee Movie
Yes.
was not exactly true.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is true. I don't know.
Look, I haven't actually seen the movie, to be quite frank with
Haven't
you.
you?
No, I haven't. I have no intention of it either. But
Right.
I think there's a few myths dispelled in that movie. I'm trying to remember something about the genders in the movie. I remember somebody telling me. So,
Oh, I see.
in an
because
actual
they-
proper hive, the boys more or less do nothing. The queen is basically an egg-laying machine, which I
Yes.
don't think is portrayed too accurately in the movie. But anyway, we're here to have a bit of fun, aren't we? Not be movie critics. So
Jerry Seinfeld. He's got a lot to answer for in the bee game. Kids grow up thinking that bees
Yeah.
live in an equal society, and they don't.
no, referring to the roles of the bees there.
Yeah. They don't. We can get to the roles of the bees. I was opening up with a silly question, Tim.
Sorry, mate.
That's how we do it. We open up with this. That sucks the people in, and then now they're in. They're here for the next 45 minutes. To learn
Those
about,
poor people.
Learn about
I hope
bees.
the questions get better than that.
A couple more for you. We'll wait till
Cool,
we get there. Now, when we were setting this up, and we did try and set this up pre-lockdown, but then we got stuck. We couldn't come out here because this is your house. This is a side area to your house which is purely set up for beehiving. But you're also an accountant. You said, "Oh, I'm also an accountant. I could interview you about being an accountant." To which I said, "That's quite boring. I'm not interested." So
Oh, I thought that's what you're here for.
no, I don't want to know.
Have
about
you put me
accounting.
under a false pretense?
Yeah.
I
it's
thought
set
you were
up.
here to...
You've got the wrong T-shirt
I thought
on.
you came to do your tax return.
I'd like
No,
to.
I love how you say also an accountant there,
Also,
Aiden.
yeah.
Also
Yes.
an accountant. Look, accounting for me, they started about the same time is when
Mm.
I started doing the accounting and the beekeeping. Certainly, the beekeeping seems to be a bit more of an exciting thing that people like to hear about. You're not alone on that. For me, honestly, both are just as exciting. They really
Yeah,
are. Probably
really.
doesn't help that the car's covered in honeycomb and beekeeping labels.
That's right, and not maths problems.
Not dollar signs.
GST
And
sums or something.
hypotenuses and triangles. Yes, I can. All right, I'll work that doing that on the other side of
it
the
in
car
there,
then,
yeah.
perhaps. So, yes, I am also an accountant. So
Yeah,
I have
and-
my
and-
own little small practice out here.
Yes, Tim Martin's accountancy. Is that what it is?
TM Financial
TM
Services
Financial
is the
Services.
business name. Thank you.
Righto.
If you listen to my voicemail, you'll notice TM Financial Services comes first. Tower
Ah,
Beekeeping
right.
comes second. But that's not what you're here for. So let's stick to the beekeeping.
I'm interviewing interesting people.
Yep.
So we can delve into
Whatever
all
we
sides
like.
of it. Yeah.
Good.
I do Google my people, and I found you
Yep.
were an award-winning accountant.
Yes.
An
yeah.
award-winning Dean's Merit List.
That's it. So
does that mean?
it means, the technical entry onto that list, as they so call it's the top 3% of the Deakin Graduate School of Business. So basically it means academically I did quite well, yes.
There you go.
To be modest about it. But look, it's not something I've ever really struggled with, the study side of things. People that know me know that when I do something I tend to do it properly.
Right.
So it was a 2-year Masters of Commerce degree, same structure as a Masters of Professional Accounting. I had it done in just under 9 months, so I just did it full time.
2 years
all
in 9
purely
months.
Sorry?
2 years in 9 months.
2 years into 9 months. Well, when I knew what I wanted to do, that was it. There was no holding me back from there. So did it purely online from basically my living room inside there.
Yeah.
And as I said, it was just, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Did you get into
came
it?
very
So have you got
naturally.
into that stuff late? Like, did you
No.
go from high school straight into that?
So, a bit of a story. My old man, when I finished the degree before I'd even told him that I'd actually done it, and basically the first thing he said to me was, well, that's just great. Why'd it take you this long to realise that? I told you when you were 12 that you should have been an accountant. So,
Really?
I would say, Aidan, if you speak to the people that have known me for a long time, they'll say, yeah, we knew that's what we was going to do. So, it was a sit down with a realisation for myself. I went, rightio, Tim, what the hell are you going to do? And my affinity for maths, numbers, and money was a big one. I've always been a little bit of an entrepreneur. Starting my own dog walking business at about the age of 12, yes. A few high profile clients over in Port Fairy. Hopefully they catch on to your videos.
Really? Yeah.
It was natural is how that came about.
Right. So you did go from high school into basically doing accounting. What have you done?
No. So I'm 31 years old now. Okay. I've only been accounting for 6 years, so it took me a fair while to get there. Yeah. So I took a couple of years out of uni after graduating at Warrnambool College, VCE. Couple of years out, and then I went and did a Bachelor of Health Sciences.
Right.
And that's sort of what saw me having a bit of a fitness background, so working at Aquazone.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. So you did a PT course or something?
Yeah, well, equivalent, basically.
Yeah.
It was, as I said, health sciences, specialising in exercise science, physical activity and health, and psychology. I've always had a real inquisitiveness onto the brain. So, so I did that 3-year degree. And I think I must have done that for after that, worked for a couple of years. And that was when my little girl, Ishika Rose, came along. And that's when I realised I needed to screw my head on and just go, rightio, what are you going to do? And that's, as I said, that's when it came to me and I went accountant. Right. I actually wanted to do medicine for a long time. A lot of people that know me would know that about me,
Dr. Tim.
So Dr. Tim, brain surgeon's what it was always going to be, actually. So...
You might be able to get into it in your spare time.
Yeah, lots of things I'd like to get into in my spare time. Brain surgery is probably not on the top of that list now, but hey, who knows? One day, maybe.
Well, one day. Well, I did. I have read on Facebook a little bit. This might free up your time.
Yep.
That I read on people post on Facebook sometimes that all the bees are dying, and if we let all the bees die, then the world will end. Yeah, it's very grim out there on Facebook.
No shit, really. Look, I'm not a social media person, to be honest, Hayden, but I don't deny that you're seeing all of that stuff. Certainly, there's a lot of awareness coming around the importance of bees these days, which is very important. And David Attenborough was apparently quoted saying he would say 2 years and the world would be uninhabitable without the humble bee. So... London Geographical Society gave them the most important being on Earth. Now, I don't know if that includes humans or not, Aidan, but...
I reckon they're that important.
I don't know. I'm probably rating the bees a little bit. No, not really. So they certainly are very, very important. Yeah, and that's exactly what this is so exciting. It's what makes beekeeping so exciting now, because we've got an International Bee Day that happens in May sometime, and that was another little video that I did for Deakin University. So... Yeah, they certainly are very important. If they die out, we're in deep shit. 65% of our agricultural crops are pollinated by them. 65. I've always commonly said 30 to 35, but I was doing a little bit of research on my computer earlier this morning, and it definitely said 65%.
65 of all agricultural crops in the world?
Well, in the world, yes.
Rely on bee pollination.
So much of what we eat is directly pollinated by the bees, but then that doesn't even allow for the things that clover and canola that our livestock eat, that we then eat. So the indirect effect of their pollination is what I'm trying to say there.
That gets it up to the
I mean, it's pretty. So
we've got to look after the bees.
We've got to look after the bees. We've got to do something to look after them, and probably it's actually what we're doing that's not looking after them that's more impacting them. So it's the common agricultural practices that are being taken up these days, the use of chemicals on so much of our food.
Yeah.
So that's
spraying and burning everything.
Spraying, burning, poisoning, insecticides, pesticides, you name it. And, you know, shout out to the Volcano Produce guys that do their organics down there. And I'm buying a bunch of carrots there the other day. I was trying to buy a bunch of carrots there the other day, and they didn't have any in the fridge. And the guy recognised me over the fence. He called out, "What are you after?" I said, I was after some carrots. He quite literally bent down and pulled them out of the ground and threw them at me. And my little girl was sitting in the car, and she goes, Did he just pulled them out of the ground? Well, yeah, that's actually where carrots come from. You know, they're not meant to look all perfect and straight and things in the supermarket. And I mean, I think my conversation spiraled into that direction because we're so used to everything looking so pristine and perfect and clean. And, you know, we could go down the conversation of the odd bunch that I know Safeway do with the carrots. You see the imperfect guys. I mean, I think that's great. And,
so I think so what you're saying is that people don't maybe link their food that they get from Coles, which is super perfect, to something that's then come out of the ground, which has really lasted in the ground or has come around because bees have been around to help pollinate.
Definitely, they've certainly pollinated that. I mean, like I said, my conversation headed in that direction, just with the chemicals and the practices that are used to make those so-called perfect vegetables. Which they shouldn't be and they don't need to be. But anyway, that's
buy the imperfect carrots. I'm a big imperfect carrot buyer. I'm getting a bit off the imperfect apples though.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They're just not the same. They taste like garbage.
Okay.
But imperfect carrots,
do
I'm
they
into.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like them. Yeah, they taste. I think they're just too close to being rotten. I think this is what I think. I don't know whether this is true.
Yep.
I think that what Coles do, and is they get the empty bags.
Yes.
And then they wait until the apples that are on the shelf are getting a bit rank, and then they chuck them in the imperfect bag and zip it up,
and then
throw
them in there.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
I thought you were going to have a dig at another supermarket, so they go and buy the other supermarket's vegetables and then sell them as their own or something. Don't know.
Who knows?
Don't know, eh?
We don't know.
I'm probably not going to lose sleep over that either, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
I've got a pretty good fruit and apple tree out there, so if you need an apple tree...
Well, you would have good fruit trees out here because you've got a billion bees.
Great little crop of food, of apples and whatever else I've got out there. Plums, nectarines, apricots. I just wish I had the time to actually go and harvest, to be quite honest with you. My sheep quite enjoys eating the apple tree. Let the bats do it,
Do you find that the people's fruit trees and flowering plants benefit from having a hive in their house?
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
So people notice it? Yeah.
I'm actually amazed at how many people come to me and they say to me, "Rightio, Tim, I've been thinking about doing beekeeping for a few years." Some people have said to me they've been thinking about doing it their whole lives. Right. I love the association a lot of people have with their father or their grandfather or even their great-grandfather having kept bees.
Right.
So, middle-aged people coming in and saying they have these fond childhood memories of their distant relatives having had bees in the past. Now, my thoughts are like a railway track that's gone way off track. But your question is, so yes, people. It amazes me at how many people come to me and they go, "We want a beehive," but it's got nothing to do with the honey production. They just want a beehive in their backyard because they know the benefits of pollination.
Oh, okay. Yep. So they do it more as fans of being a fruit grower, and they want better quality crops or bigger crops.
Better yields out of them.
Yeah,
and that's why
leave the honey be. Yeah, just leave it.
Yeah, the pollination market's huge. Almonds, have you heard of any of that sort of jazz happening or not?
No.
The almonds absolutely require macadamias, plums, bee pollination. So they've got these huge plantations.
I don't do a lot of research. I get you to do that.
Yeah, neither do I really. I just sort of go off what people tell me and hope that it's right. But no, I was actually reading that again this morning, and it was an old article, 2008, but they were talking about how big they expect the pollination market to get. And at the moment, they put about 122,000 hives on the almonds in Australia at the moment. They expect that number to increase to 250,000. But so there's pretty... Not whether we're talking about money because my accountant's hats are not on, but there's a lot of money in the pollination, and that's why a lot of people get into beekeeping is to outsource, basically lease out their beehives to pollinate. So
Well, my next door neighbour's got a couple of fruit trees. I should get him to pay me to.
Well, I try and send invoice books around with my bees, and so they can finish pollinating everyone's fruit and veg and then write them out a bill. I was joking with someone that the other day, but people don't seem to be paying Aidan. I don't know what's going on. But in all seriousness, I get quite a few people coming to me saying they don't want to be a beekeeper, but they know the benefits of bees on their property, and so they ask me to put a beehive on their property. Now,
okay, and then you just get to go in there and reap the harvest and.
Yeah, so I get the hive on the property and get the honey from it and everything else. It maintains as my property, but they get the benefits of having a beehive on their property. I'm sort of drifting away from that just with the timeliness factor in my life.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult.
How many hives have you got on the go at the moment?
Jumping in the car. So, yeah, I've got about 45 hives at the moment. I'm sort of only set on getting about 50, which is micro, which is absolutely micro in the beekeeping scheme. I mean, big beekeepers have thousands.
Yeah.
So, flatbed trucks, trucking them, taking them all around Australia.
Right.
What's the doco? There's a doco. I can't think of what it's called at the moment.
The bee movie?
No, it's not. I don't know what bee movie you watched, but I don't think that's a doco. I think the animation gave that away. But and it followed Miller's, I think it is, Miller's Honey in America. Followed him around. And you get a bit of an idea of what sort of scale beekeeping can be done on there.
So they're honey manufacturers. Like their job is honey. Yeah,
correct.
Millers,
yeah. And he would do pollination, I expect. But yeah, like I said, in terms of my own domestic hives, like I'm sort of trying to concentrate them onto a few good producing properties now.
Yes.
It's just too much hoo-ha going between all these different properties. But it's not easy because, the people actually get attached to them. And I mean, it's the same as my German Shepherd over there, Sky. A lot of people treat their hives as pets as much as they do a dog and a cat.
Right.
And those hives that I've put on people's properties, when I tell the owner, listen, I'm sort of thinking I'm going to have to take this because it's just coming too much effort. They're really, really, really? So, and that's the other side of why a lot of people get these things as well, because they are more than pollination, more than honey. They are a being. They're an amazing creature. Absolutely amazing. There's so much to learn from them, about them. And I genuinely believe so much that we still don't even know about them. So
100%. Because I am a new apiarist. Is that the right word? A new apiarist. And the only reason I got into it is because my mum said that she wanted one, and my mum's been out here and Reese, and then. Just because I'm inquisitive, I obviously asked too many questions about beekeeping, and then that must have meant to my mum, that means that he wants a beehive.
It was a gift,
wasn't it? It was my 40th birthday present. Was a beehive.
Yep.
And I don't know if people might not be able to quite see, but there's the Australian Beekeeping Manual, which I've read through a couple of times. They are super fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way the whole hive works. We can get into the whole hive. Let's do it. So,
you want to go open one up now?
Go and open one.
Do you want me to bring one in, or you said let's get into the hive?
Every time I come here, you get stung. Every time I come here, you've been stung by a bee. Except for now, you haven't been stung yet.
I haven't been stung today. No, we're having a good day.
Right. If I gave you $1 for every time you've been stung by a bee, what sort of money? What could we buy?
If I had $1 for every time I've been stung. Probably a gold-plated bee suit.
Gold-plated bee suit.
Probably a suit so damn expensive that I'd never have to get stung again. What do you reckon? Gold-plated, I obviously say, just because gold sounds like worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know how much a gold-plated bee suit would be, but I love the question when people say to me, have you ever... I mean, I actually have people say to me, have you ever been stung?
Have you ever been stung?
I awoke several days later because I sort of just dropped thinking... Now, I understand it's not ignorance. It's not, people don't really understand what's involved. But
no, people probably think that if you're going to hang around, you'd actually wear the bee suit and not shorts and t-shirt.
That's probably the problem too, when you go and open beehives up and you actually just don't have a suit or anything else on. Funnily enough, I'll give you a hot tip. You get more stings when you don't even have the suit on. Now, I know how stupid that sounds, but what I'm saying is it's those unexpected times that you actually get stung. So you go and open your beehive up. Most people would suit up, smoke up, get the appropriate tools and protective gear and all that sort of jazz. But it's when you're walking away again and you start getting undressed, or you jump in the car and you forget that there was a bee on the back of your suit and you throw the suit in your back of your car.
Right.
It's those sorts of times. And I mean, my poor daughter, I remember sitting on one, got stung right on the backside. She doesn't let me forget that. So... But I couldn't possibly count it. It'd be thousands upon thousands. I mean, on a bad day, I might be stung between 30 and 50 times. But I'm not a normal. I mean, I'm not a normal person, full stop. But I'm definitely not a normal beekeeper. So with all the hive relocations and swarm captures that I do, the hive relocations is a common time that I get stung. When I'm doing just an inspection on my own beehives or someone else's, really bee stings are actually very rare.
Quite rare.
Yeah, I definitely hands down. And I mean, as I say, when you're just doing a routine inspection, I was out looking the other day, we probably looked at about 40 odd hives. So we opened, smoked and inspected every, 40 odd hives. I don't think I got a sting that whole day.
No suit.
I had a suit.
I had a suit.
I had my suit on.
Right. That's right, because you were saying it's more likely to happen later.
Well, as I said, it's the times that you don't expect to. And as I said, it sort of goes hand in hand, really, doesn't it? I mean, when you expect to get stung, you're going to take the appropriate measures so that you don't, and then you probably don't get stung. But I've certainly been known to find bees in my hair and in places that they shouldn't get. I'm sure I put my bed sheets on the other day and I found a bee in the bed sheets. So that's the sort of time I'm talking. But as I said, very rare to actually get stung.
Just when I'm here.
Just from a hive. They don't want to sting us any more than we want to be stung by them, like a snake bite as well.
No.
So,
and then different bees, or even different hives and different swarms of bees have very different behaviours. Because I remember, my hive at home, I'm on my third swarm, as you know.
I wasn't going to mention that.
No, we're going to mention it. Yeah. So my first swarm seemingly didn't have a queen, so they just sort of died out. But they were angry.
Yeah.
They were an angry bunch. And then the ones I've got now, I can stand, here to that hive away and film them and stuff and talk to them and call them by their names.
They
Fine,
definitely
100%.
have
Never
different
tried.
temperaments.
That first bunch I had were angry bees.
Yeah, but you see, you actually answered the question yourself. You said they had no queen. And
Ah.
a hive without a queen is going to be a rambunctious hive. Something's wrong with the hive. And I say that to people a bit when they say that their hive's being unusually aggressive. So they might say to me, I've had this hive for a couple of years, never had a problem. And now I suddenly can't step in my backyard. You'll say to them, well, have you gone and had a look at them? No, I haven't gone and had a look in them. They're as aggressive as hell. I don't want to go look in them. Well, that's what you actually need to do.
Walk towards the fire.
As contradictory as it might sound, exactly right. Throw fire on fire.
Yeah.
But typically it'll be the sign of an ailing hive, queenless, disease. It could just be a whole lot of pest in the hive. But that's just a bit of an... in my own experience, what am I trying to say? You're finding that you never really...
You set me up with a bad hive and they stung me multiple times.
Look, I wouldn't point fingers, but...
They're good ones now. And the smell, I was mowing the other day and it was like...
You smell it already?
Yeah, I reckon 2 weeks. How long have they been there? 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 weeks, I would have said.
I can smell
We're
it.
in the middle of swarm season at the moment, and I've got a beautiful big swarm just out the road toward Woolsthorpe the other day. It was hanging on a tree branch. It was probably one of my finest swarm captures I've ever done, if I don't mind saying so myself.
What makes a good swarm capture?
I don't know that I even have any photos or videos, but I was dressed exactly the same way I am now, except I didn't even have a singlet on. The guy, good on you, David, already had the ladder set up for me, and it was just hanging on a tree branch, so we got the big set of clippers, cut the branch off, holding the branch with the swarm on the end of it, lowered it down, dropped it into the beehive box, threw the lid on and walked away. So that was the swarms are typically quite docile though. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. They just like, but something else I'd actually like to add there, and I always finding myself comparing bees to dogs. And that is that they definitely detect anxiety, nervousness, stress in the person as well. If I'm standing out there doing what we're doing right now, talking to somebody, if they're a nervous wreck, they're the ones that'll probably get stung rather than you. So when you're cool, calm and collected around the beehive, they'll respond accordingly. And I say that's quite comparable to the dogs because, with the shepherd over there, if you're sort of backing off, you're hesitant and you're reluctant, she's sort of going to, it makes them on edge as well. So,
you told me off last time I was here because I was trying to flap one away from my head and you said,
there
flap
you
it,
go.
it'll get ya.
So if anything, at least I'm consistent then. Exactly right. I thought you were going to tell me you were telling me off about the dog or something or other.
No. He's happy.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's, it's like getting barreled. You surf?
I did when I was younger.
It's like getting barreled, when you panic and you get the adrenaline rush, people end up swimming down instead of up because they've lost their head. Well, it's exactly the same thing. Yeah. And I understand it's easier said than done when you've got a bee hanging around in front of your head thinking, oh, geez,
They come at you. Yeah.
But definitely different temperaments. They've all got slightly different strains in them over here in Australia. So they're a Western honeybee. They're a completely... To be quite impolite about it, they're a mongrel bee over here. And this is the honeybee I'm referring to here, not the native bees. So they're basically a mix of an Italian European and
Right. We've got bits of bees, like
We've
Like
got
a,
we've
blue
got
healer.
sort of what's been left from many centuries of
Yeah.
breeding.
Right. Tell me about the structure of a hive. So when you give someone a hive or give someone a swarm of bees,
Yep.
there's I know there's drones and there's
Well, hang on.
what else?
Weren't you bragging before about?
Yeah, I've
having
read the book. I'm trying to
3
remember what they
times?
are.
Oh, okay.
Drones and the queen. I got the queen. There's no king bee.
No king. No.
And there's one more. The worker bees.
King bee. Some people call me the king bee.
Oh, the king. Okay, you're the king.
I've heard of a few queen bees before. But anyway,
Did I get? Is that 3? Drones.
what did you say the
drones,
last one?
Workers.
Workers? Yeah.
Right.
So which one was the boys?
Drones
Good man.
and workers.
And-
No, just drones.
Just the drones.
Ah, damn.
Drones are boys.
Right.
The workers, are the girls.
And they go and get the pollen.
Yeah. So
Right.
they are one of their roles is to forage.
Right.
Yeah.
Fill me in. Go on.
Don't
I
ask
feel
me-
like I'm being quizzed now.
You are being quizzed. I'm going to turn the questioning around. Suits me just fine.
All right, go on.
I'd prefer to be
Fill
in
it
your seat. So
Righto.
probably the most fascinating thing about drones. Any idea? Have one
Fascinating things about drones.
drones?
Are so they go out and their
embarrass
job.
yourself.
No, okay. I'm going to say their job. They go and sort of seek. They find out where it is,
Where what is?
the pollen, and that's only the
The
workers.
drones only have one job, one role, and they're boys.
And they,
I'm going to let your imagination take over here.
Right.
They're
They go find more queens.
more virgin
More
queens.
queens too.
That is their only purpose.
Right.
So this time of the year when
they go.
swarms are happening, we're going to get a lot of virgin queens because when they swarm, the existing or the current queen of the hive takes off with the swarm, typically between 10 and 20% of the hive population.
Right.
Maybe I need to slow down so people can listen.
No, gotcha. 10 to 20% go
so
with the
old
queen,
queen
yeah.
leaves, and then the hive that's left behind, they need to make a new queen. So they make a new queen from one
Right.
of the eggs that the old queen laid before she left. So once she hatches out, she's going to be a virgin queen. I think it's about 3 to 5 days old. She'll go up for what's called her mating flight.
Yes.
And that's
yep.
when the drones jobs come into it.
Right.
And I don't know
The
how...
drones from that hive or from a
No,
different hive?
any
Any
hives,
hive?
any and all hives. So
Right.
it was actually on the Australian Bee Challenge. They did this quite interesting. They let a virgin queen go. They used the pheromone of a virgin queen in one of the major parks in smack bang in the middle of Sydney, and they caught in this gigantic balloon net-looking thing all the different drones that came along.
Yeah.
And they analysed how many different hives there were by taking the genes of these drones.
Ah, right.
I'm racking my memory here, so I could be a
Yeah,
little bit
you
wrong
said
on
you were
some of the facts because this is a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But it was incredible the number of different hives that all these different drones had come
Right.
from to impregnate this virgin queen. So she'll go up on her mating flight, be mated by multiple drones.
Right.
Are we allowed to get gruesome?
Yeah, go on.
So penis snaps off.
Breaks it off.
They
yeah.
fall to their death, and then the penis, and then another one comes along. So,
Right. Jesus.
and so she will. Look, I've read she may go on another mating flight again in her
Yeah.
life, but
So
I'm
the
not
mating
sure.
flight, then she goes. So she's the new one. She goes back to the hive
Yeah,
that she
so
came
then
from.
she'll return to the hive. She's a fully
Yeah.
mated queen now then.
Right.
And that's when her egg laying starts. And that's it. As I said, she'll leave the hive again if she swarms.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are
And then the new one come back. Yeah.
The thing that I was getting at before is drones can't sting. Drones are actually stingless. So they're a
Drones are
big,
stingless.
solid, stocky looking bee. They tend to have a hairy bum. A lot of people mistake the drones for the queen. So
Right.
when I'm doing inspections with new amateur beekeepers, they'll often point at a drone and say, is that the queen? Is that the queen?
Yeah.
My daughter took a drone to school once in a little container.
Oh,
and,
right.
and all I can remember hearing from my daughter was that the teacher was not very pleased to hear that Ishika had brought a bee to school, despite Ishika's protesting that it's okay because it's a drone, it can't sting. I don't know that the teacher had the patience to hear Ishika out,
Right.
because she saw a bee in a container flying around. So, yeah, God bless the little girl. But so drones can't sting. Yeah,
Drones can't see. So what percentage? How many drones would there be in a hive? Like what percentage wise?
Yeah, good question. This time of the year, look, I couldn't put a number on it,
Right.
but there's a higher percentage of them at this time of the year.
So more of them than workers, or there'd be more
No.
workers? Yeah.
I want to say 20%, but even that's probably pretty high.
That
It
sounds
might
good for
only
me.
be 5 or 10%. Hey,
It sounds good to me.
sounds good to
Sure,
you. Got
yeah.
you convinced?
Yeah.
good. I'll convince myself then too. So, a small percentage of them are drones at this time of the year. So the inspections that I was doing the other day, I saw quite a few drones. But like I said, it's swarm season. So that's when we're getting the virgin queens. And the hives know all this. Often a seasoned, experienced beekeeper will look for the presence or a high presence of drones as an indicator that the hive is thinking about swarming.
Right.
So the presence of drones can often mean
when the numbers
swarming.
bump up, right?
Yeah.
And then the workers, their job, they're the pollen hunters. So when I was watching my hive the other day,
Yep.
the pollen hunters, is that what you call them?
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard it used in my experience before. But
Write
that's
it down.
We'll go with that now. Yep.
So I was watching my hive the other day, and I was showing my kids. I'm like, check out, those bees were coming in with yellow legs. So they had the pollen all stuck over their legs
on their hind,
and then they go back inside, and
their bags are packed. Is the phrase.
bags are
their
packed.
Bags are packed.
Yeah. It's quite interesting to see the different colours. Some are it's like a really pale white, so different coloured pollens and whatever else, and then they go into the hive, and then the other workers. Is honey? What is honey? What is honey?
I wanted to call my honey when I first started making it bee vomit.
Yeah.
I was disallowed that, but it's because it's vomit.
Yeah.
So I was actually explaining this to someone just the other day. And again, I can't even remember where or how or who or whatever it is that I heard this. But my understanding is that the foragers are collecting the nectar and the pollen, right? Both different food sources, both used for different things in the hives. The nectar is what will ultimately be made into honey. But the foragers don't really actually enter the hive or go into the depths of the hive. They go into the hive, but then they actually transfer it to other bees that are in the hive. So orally, they just spew it out and give it to another bee. And through that process is when it takes on its lower moisture content and flavour. So it's spewed between the bees until it's finally stored in one of the cells in the hive.
Yummy.
Yeah, beautiful. And that explains why it's so sweet. So then once it's stored in the cells, it's still nectar, and then they'll reduce the moisture content down, the water content down to about, I think it's under 20%. Yeah. Honey legally has to be under 24 roundabouts. Water content, which is actually what makes it infinite lifespan because of its low moisture content. So as long as it's stored outside.
Is this one of the only, never goes off? Is that right?
Yeah,
never goes
correct.
off?
Yeah, the story is they found it in Tutankhamun's tomb in a container, and they were still able to eat it. So
someone made a sandwich when they opened it up.
Yeah. Oh, good. I was hungry too.
Crumpet.
All that digging might have had them low on carbs. So it is. It's an incredible product. It's. I believe it's the only known food source. The only known food that does have an infinite lifespan. So spewed out, stored in the cells. Once the bees have the right moisture content, they cap it. And you probably can't see the frame up there. That's a honeycomb, but you can see there that's a fully capped frame. Yes. So it's got a wax coating on the top of it. You stuck a knife through that, it'll all be absolutely liquefied honey. It's been sitting there for a year and a half.
Yeah, but good to go. Yeah. Yeah, no, so we're looking at one of your frames out of the hives, and it's so you can see the honeycomb shape that the bees have built, and then they cap it with a wax over the top to store it. Correct. Like a lid, just a lid.
A lid. They put the lid on.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. I'm learning as much
as
you
you
are
today.
today.
You'll make it, bee hunter. What did I say? Pollen
hunter.
And just lids.
And lids.
Not caps.
No.
What would you call it, caps?
How scientific. How technical.
Very good. All right, so the hive's running well. There's only ever one queen in there. Her job, she's just making eggs.
Yeah, egg-laying machine is actually what I sort of coin her as. She's in no way a queen in matriarch in the sense of decision-making or anything else. She's literally fed, cleaned by the other bees. Yeah. She's told where to go. She's told when to lay because her egg-laying changes rates across the year, up to 2,000 eggs a day over peak time, which is what we're in now, sort of spring, summer, which is when they're bringing their numbers up. Yeah.
It's impressive work.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure I envy her, to be quite honest. But anyway, it's pretty crazy being fed and cleaned.
Pruned and cleaned and just pumping out eggs. Yeah, sounds horrible.
Pumping out babies is really what she's doing. But anyway.
Right. So, people who might think of getting a hive or already have one and just getting into it, as I am. What sort of honey production can we get out of it? Like, how much is a hive producing? You got 6 tubs of honey
grams.
there.
Yep.
Is that one hive's worth, or is that
one hive's worth?
I don't know.
So that frame that we were referring to before, holds between 2.5 and 3 kilos of honey is what you'll get out of that.
Out of one frame.
Out of one frame.
And then my box has 10 frames?
10-frame hive.
Wow, okay.
So if all of those frames were filled, 2.5, 3 kilos per each. So you're talking, come on, how's your maths?
Right,
Is there an accountant in the room? Sky, can you help us? So look, 25 to 30 kilos if it's a 10-frame hive.
Right.
And in a good year with an established hive at a good weather, 2 times, 3 times is what you could harvest from that hive. I got 3 harvests out of my established hives last year. So 100 kgs.
Yeah, 100 kilos.
Up to, I suppose, would be.
And just out of just in your backyard. Yeah.
What's that? It'd be in the backyard.
You could have
I mean, look,
that's
friends, family, neighbours. Sorry, excuse me. Once you've got a beehive, you tend to increase your friend numbers as well.
Right. Everyone gets honey.
Found that or not?
Everyone gets honey.
Yet.
Well,
maybe
not
it's
yet.
no. Maybe it's not because
Mine keep flying away.
You're losing friends.
I'm not a there's probably a neighbour about 6 doors up that's wondering why they've got a swarm of bees on their letterbox. I don't know where they came from. They don't look like mine.
No. You've got collars on you.
Run the other way. Yeah. I wrote my name on mine.
You've got a microchip. Yeah, so look, as I said, an established hive, it's a little bit of a how long's a piece of string. It's farming, it's a primary production business. It depends on so many different factors, but that's a rule of thumb, is, as I said.
Yeah, and not all honeys taste the same. It's all based on what sort of fruiting trees or flowering trees are around where you are.
The source is where they've come from. So that's where you get yellow box, red box, all the different honey flavours. Is the nectar source that they've been foraging on. So Donnie Carter, shout out to him, a beekeeper in Warrnambool that has some hives up around on some yellow box farm. My favourite honey, I reckon, yellow box.
Yellow box.
But
that's a gum, isn't it? Like a type of gum.
Yeah. That's a delicious honey, absolutely delicious. So that's how people. I believe it's an 80% you've got to be able to do on chemical analysis that the honey has come from that one particular source. So a common question I do get about my honey is, what is it? What's the honey? I said, well, it's from Croyd honey. It's backyard honey. It's
so yours is a bit of a mixture.
It's mixed is what I call it.
And most people's backyard hives are going to be a mixture.
And I'd question even how much people's are that try and put a name on it as well if we can get that cheeky. So, if you're on a plantation where there's literally only one nectar source, you might be able to argue that that is your honey. But does it really allow for all the weeds, the undergrowth and the things? Cape weed is a good source for bees, predominantly pollen, but it does produce nectar as well, I believe. Yeah. If that stuff's growing everywhere, the bees are going to be going to that as well. So
what's cape weed honey taste like?
Apparently pretty good? Garbage. No.
Yeah, right,
I mean, I've got a portion of cape weed out there, but all the fruit trees, and you'll get a different honey at different times of the year as well. So I've got, 4 or 5 hives sitting out there at the moment. The honey they're producing right now will be very different in taste to what they'll be producing in 6 months' time because of what's flowering at the time. Yeah. So cape weed's flowering now, but it won't be flowering in another 6 months.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm not too much of a garden person, Aidan. Some people mistake me to think that I'm like some sort of expert on flowering trees and things. I'm going,
right,
really.
Yeah.
But different honeys, different
honeys,
the nectar source is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think Mum and Reese pulled theirs apart the other day and got some honey and comb out of it, and had a tea tree flavour. They live near Briley, which you've got a lot of that sort of salty tea tree
Coastal tea tree? Yeah, I've got a mate over in Merivale there that he was saying the other day that he backs on to a lot of the dunes up that way. Yeah. And he says that he can definitely taste it. A very definitive tea tree flavour to it. I can't say my taste buds are all that refined, to be quite honest with you. I pick some honey and I go, shit, that's the good tasting honey, or that's not one of my favourites. It was leatherwood honeycomb actually that got me into beekeeping, which was on my questions list. I don't know what happened to my questions list, but anyway, we may as well forget about that.
We get to some of them.
But no, that's okay. Leatherwood, I mean, I really enjoyed that, but I remember seeing a poll on a Facebook page there and it talked about what's your favourite honey. And I think only about 2% of people selected leatherwood. It's an extremely strong flavour. Leatherwood, Tasmania is. Right. Ever heard of it? A big gum, apparently. Yeah, okay. A lot of it got wiped out in the fires that happened down there a few years ago. Yeah. And it takes a long, long time to flower as well. So leatherwood honey is probably on a premium at the moment, but it doesn't sound like it's in too high of a demand as well. So.
All right, keep your eyes out in the shops for some leatherwood honey.
Leatherwood honey. Well, I quite like it, but Manuka, it's made using tea tree is I believe it's in the same family as Manuka.
Right.
It's not quite as active as Manuka, but
Do the job. So if people wanted to get into beekeeping, people are maybe watching this thinking, if Aidan can do it, it can't be that hard. But
Well, hang on.
To be fair,
That's assuming you're doing it.
Yeah. To be fair, I have lost two swarms and I've produced 0 honey so far.
You'll get there.
But if other people wanted to have a go,
Yep.
what do they have to do? What do you do?
Come and see me.
See you, ring you.
Look,
Right.
I sort of look. I don't want to
But
make.
what do you need? Like,
What do you
you
do?
need a backyard with trees and flowers, or can you? I mean,
Hives do better in centralised, urbanised areas than what they do out in the open.
right.
Every day of the week. I mean, I've got a few hives dotted through backyards in Warrnambool.
Mm-hmm.
Can barely keep up with the honey production of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be stereotypical, hives that are out in the middle of a farm can be very monoculture. So it could be that they're on a lucerne crop. So if the lucerne's not flowering, what are the bees feeding on?
Right.
Same again. So whereas in a backyard environment, you've got such a diversity, such a range of flowers, nectar, pollen sources. The bees do really, really well.
Yeah, and all year round, like you said before,
All year round.
you got different
Parks,
flowers.
manicured lawns, not lawns, but gardens, areas like that. Bees love that stuff.
How far do they go to get pollen?
I haven't
Do we know?
measured one yet. I was going to put a GPS on one the other
Put
day.
a piece of string on one of them and
Put
just
and follow it.
put a notch every
Was that
metre.
the one I was following? Or no, hang on, I think it's her there. No, look. Again, I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but 3 kilometres is the rule of thumb, is what they can go on. Now, they'll only go as far as they want to, though, or need to, I should say. But I often walk up a block up. I walk up to the top of Tower Hill from where I am here in Koroit, and there's the next road up. Sometimes I look down the road and I swear there's just this steady stream of bees coming from my house and that sort of thing. And I often wonder whether they're heading as far as Tower Hill, up to the top there. But I'd sort of look around and go, do they really need to be?
Yeah, that's right. How many plants do you go past on your way there?
Correct. So, but up to 3 kilometres is, as I said, the general accepted sort of rule of thumb is what they'll go up to.
Some people have their favourite pubs, don't they? They'll walk past. They'll walk past one pub to get to the next one.
Yeah, exactly
so
right. It's just what's on tap at it's a certain place. Says a non-drinker, but anyway. So.
Okay, so someone wants to get into being a beekeeper. They've decided they want to have a little production at their house.
Yep.
What's the scale of something that they need? So we've got some bits and pieces here. That's the size of mine. That one there. That's just the top part there.
That's a 10 framer there.
That's a 10 framer.
Looking at it from here.
And that's the because I did read again in the Bible, the Australian Beekeeping Manual.
Yes, good word.
Here's some words. You can use these all in one coherent sentence. There's the super.
You're correct. Yes.
There's the brood box.
Yeah, good man.
Excluder.
Yes. Excluder, extruder. People call that a few different things. Yeah.
Right.
Apparently, it depends what state you live in too. I had a woman calling the frames droppers to me the other day.
A dropper.
Yeah, a dropper. Droppers.
Oh, dropper.
Because she said to me she wants a box with droppers. And I thought, she want me steel droppers? Or like she want the star pickets? Yeah. I'm not sure. But anyway.
No, righto. So what did I say? I said brood box and super and excluders and honey. Is a honey box? Is that a different one or is that the whole thing?
Honey box. Well, that's a super.
Is that a different? Oh, it's the same thing.
Super is typically called a honey box. The honey box, the box that is used for honey. Right. You would typically call a super. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, because I've run out of words. So I was hoping you'd start.
That's it.
I was hoping you would start the coherent sentence that used all of those words and
you
told everybody. Yeah, I want to know what the makeup of the box is and what.
Brood chamber is the brood box. That's where the queen spends most of her time. That's what you need to begin with.
Okay.
Again, I don't want to make this a marketing pitch, but that's a single super hive.
Yes.
And that's what I suggest to people. That's what you need to begin with. But that's once you got the bees. I like hearing from people that have done a bit of groundwork, a bit of research first, because they should be treated the same way as dogs. You shouldn't just duck off to the RSPCA one day and adopt the next dog. There's a tongue twister for you. I like hearing people have thought about this stuff.
Okay.
Because it's a commitment. As I said, you don't want to just decide one weekend. But that book, Bible, as you rightfully call it, is a great starting point. Depends what sort of person you are. A lot of people jump on YouTube and all those sorts of sources. I couldn't think of anything worse, but that's just me. I try and be a one-stop shop here. So someone can walk through that door and go, rightio, Tim, I've done a bit of groundwork. Yeah, I want some bees. Set me up. Yeah. You need a single super hive at a minimum, protective wear, tools.
Right.
bits and pieces, and then the bees.
Okay, so that's the single super hive. That's what I've got.
Yep.
So now
Except that doesn't
my
have
next
space
step would be,
between
what's the one below that? It looks like a half size
Yeah,
thing.
so that's an ideal, and that's a bit of a
ideal.
setup that I take on myself, Aidan. And my line to people is I don't try and profess that that's the best, the only, or the perfect way of doing a hive setup.
Yeah.
The thing I like about beekeeping is there's his way, their way, and everyone else's.
The bees survived a long time without us putting them in
If
homemade
anything,
boxes.
it's us that's jeopardising their survival, and that's coming back to what we were saying before about the practices that we use. Is actually jeopardising. As I said to you before, it's what we're doing it's ruining them, not so much what we're not doing in a sense. But so my setup is that I run a full depth brood chamber. Full depth. That's another probably phrase for you.
Full depth, right?
So that's a full depth box.
Right.
That'd be the brood chamber. That needs a base on it.
Yes.
It doesn't have.
We're missing the base.
Probably over there behind me somewhere. Once the bees are filled out, about 80% full or so, is when you need to put on another super.
Yes.
And for what that actually is, depends on the person. If it was me, I would put a little ideal on him. And I use that as an extra honey storage, a second brood chamber.
So he has frames in it, or
it has frames
little
in
mini
it.
frames?
They're just behind you there, whether you can see those or not on the top shelf there. They're so cute, aren't they? I think they're great. All boxes have frames in them. They should have frames in them.
Yes.
It's actually a legal requirement that the hives have removable inserts, is the terminology that's used.
Yep.
So then you put an ideal on it, and that's in my setup, that's for the bees. I don't remove anything from that. I inspect it, make sure it's healthy and everything else. And then on top of that, we come your excluder, good man. So put that on top of the ideal, and then a honey box on top of that, and that's where I harvest my honey from.
Honey from the honey box.
Honey from the honey box.
Yes.
So my setup looks like a 2.5 box setup. So
Yes.
full depth brood chamber with the ideal in the middle, and then an excluder and a honey box.
Right.
And as I said, that's a setup that works for me. It gives me a peace of mind that I don't need to be feeding them over winter. I've had other people from Portland say to me they can't believe I only put an ideal on. They need to put a second brood chamber. So they use 2 full depth boxes, and then the bees can use that for honey storage over winter.
Right.
In my experience, in the last few years, I make sure the ideal is full of honey as we go into autumn winter, which is when the bees, they don't fully hibernate, but they certainly reduce inactivity. So the ideal will be full of honey, and then I'll do an inspection at the start of spring, and that ideal has still been full of honey. So the net movement of honey has actually been nothing. So it depends on the winter, depends on the environment that they're in. Like I said, have you got lots of winter flowering crops around? If yes, then they'll probably do all right.
Yeah, all right. And so the excluder, that, am I right, that stops the queen bee. So the queen bee lives in the bottom. She's making babies down there.
Yep.
Guys are making honey up the top. If she gets up there, she's just going to fill those cells with eggs so that you put the excluder in. So that's like is it like a mesh that she can't get up?
Yep.
Because she's too big.
Yeah. I'm starting to forget who the beekeeper here is in this room. Good Lord.
I've read a bit. That's all right.
Talk about coherent sentences.
Yeah. Well, after you said I want someone to come in here and who knows what they're talking about, or I won't give them swarms.
Yeah, right.
In my head, I was like, I had no idea when I first turned up.
I've got to start pretending. Shit. What did it say in that book again?
Think, Aiden.
Yeah,
think.
you did well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that right?
You're correct with what you're saying. So the excluders are just behind you there. I just use the stainless steel ones. They're just basically a stainless grid. And you're absolutely right. It's the length and the size of the queen that prevents her from being able to get through that.
I'm gonna get one, and then we can look at it.
Good idea. Let's do a show and tell. So that's a 10 frame excluder. That stops the queen from getting through, and the honeybees can get through it though. Drones can't fit through it, so you need to make sure there's no drones in the honey box.
Before you start.
For whatever reason that there could be. Well, theoretically you should be putting a brand new box on it anyway, so it shouldn't have any bees in it. But yeah.
There you go.
So that's your excluder right there.
Get one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the use of them. They're a little bit of a controversial piece of equipment. When I first started beekeeping, I didn't use them at all. Honey production wasn't really on my radar when I had 2 hives. It was never really meant to become what it's become. And exactly what you said yourself, when I didn't use the excluder, I found some hives, the queen went straight up north and just started laying in what was supposed to be my honey boxes. Yeah. So it was probably that frustration that got the better of me, and I went, well, you know what? But I've seen some pretty... let's just say stressful occurrences where the bees haven't been able to get back through the excluder on a hot day and things. So they can have They can wear the bees down as
Ah.
they try and scrape through that excluder each time.
Oh, because it fills up and like it clogs
Well,
up with...
they literally have to squeeze through it.
Yeah.
So, I've taken the time to stand there and just watch the top of the hive with the excluder on it, watching the bees. And it can be quite a wiggle for them. I mean, they're an invertebrate and they can squeeze through small gaps, but it'd be sort of like you squeezing through a dog stall through your front door every time you want to get home.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to start scratching yourself, cutting yourself up, and
Yeah.
geez, that was a pretty good analogy.
Not very
I've
fun
never
for-
used that before.
The dog's door one.
Yeah.
That worked for me.
I'm starting to feel sorry for him now. Maybe I'll take all the excluders
Take it
off.
off. And not to mention,
I'm sort
you
of
make
picturing
them
you
squeeze
trying
through
to
that.
squeeze through a dog stall.
They only live about 2 weeks, and you make them
2
squeeze through
weeks,
that.
12 weeks is
12
time
weeks,
of the
is
year.
it?
Oh, yeah, over
Righto.
peak time when they're working hard, but that's allowing for... So the forager bees are actually on their last legs. So the bees enter different roles through their life cycle. When they're first born, they're a nurse bee. They work towards being a... Didn't you read this in you read this in the book?
Is this chapter 5? I haven't got to that chapter.
Could be chapter 5.5. Yeah. No, that's genuine. They do.
I just looked at the pictures, let's be honest. I didn't read it
A
anyway.
picture book, good man. Mum didn't read? No, just getting a bit cheeky. They enter different roles throughout their life cycle, and the last role for them is the forager.
Ah.
So the bees that are out foraging are they're close to death.
You'd think they'd be the young, fit ones that would be out there,
No.
like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. No.
I see
would
your
thought so.
reasoning behind
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you might have to go reinvent the bee.
Child labour.
Maybe. Yeah. Finish your life.
Reinvent the bee.
Go,
Yeah.
go. Spend the first few weeks of your life out doing the hard work, and then finish inside in the retirement home.
Absolutely.
In the hive.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
It does actually. You're right. I hadn't thought about
Anyway.
that. Been doing it all wrong.
No, I never.
No, but that's genuinely though. That's at the end of the day. They'll they die off as a forager bee, and that's it. End of life cycle. This time of the year, 12 weeks is about how long they last. They can
Yeah.
last a whole of winter
Huge
because they're not
turnover.
doing a whole lot.
Yeah. I see the occasionally I'll be watching it and there'll be a dead bee in it and they'll just slowly just roll it out and just tip it off the side of the hive and go about their day.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are ruthless.
Yeah, they are pretty ruthless, and the same with the drones. It's another good story actually. So they make the drones when they need them, but then when they don't need them, they just become an inhibitor on the hive. They just become an extra mouth to feed.
Yeah.
So they start killing off all the drones,
Ah.
and they bite their genitals off, I believe, is actually what I've read or heard somewhere. And you're quite right. It's like a massacre when they kill off all the drones and start kicking them out. They literally just drag them out the front and throw them off the veranda. It's great. Very clean animals.
Yes.
They keep the hive, pretty much impeccable if they can.
Nice and sterile.
And when
Yeah.
I'm doing the relocations, I use elastic bands on the frames to hold the comb in place in an empty frame. And so once the bees are in the hive, they chew through that elastic band and drag it out the front. And when I don't tell people about the elastic bands, they sort of call me up, Tim, there's these weird things out the front of the hive. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But someone tried to... I can't. But someone thought they was something. And I remember just laughing my head off. Anyway,
Some
so
type of
they literally...
disease worm or something
there's
that
a
was
video-
trying to get into the hive.
yeah, something like that. But I've got a video of them literally dragging it out on my Facebook page, and the bee's quite literally got like its legs up against the box,
Yeah.
dragging this elastic band out in its mouth. It's a great video, but
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So I was about to burst into asking you about the bee dance, which
Waggle
is one of
dance.
the waggle dance is one of the most fascinating things I
Yeah.
read in the Bible.
Yep.
It's where the worker bees, they head off, the foraging bees, go off and find a nectar source or a pollen source, and then they come back.
Yep.
And in bee language, obviously they can't say just over there.
That's exactly what they say.
Well, they do, but they do it with the waggle dance.
Non-verbally.
Yeah.
If only more of our communication was non-verbal, Aid? For two people that could talk the leg off a chair, I don't know, that seems a bit hypocritical. But
Tell me about the bee waggle.
the waggle dance, yeah.
Yeah.
So same again, I'm going to throw you straight onto my Facebook page, Tower Hill Beekeeping. I actually got a video of one of my swarms just here in the backyard where it was really obvious. 6, 10 bees were doing this waggle dance on the swarm.
Right.
So it is how they communicate location to one another. So if I can use my finger,
Go on.
bee will start here and it waggle dances up. The velocity with which it shakes its backside, the direction with which it's walking,
Yeah.
and one other thing, direction with it's walking, the velocity of its bum, and something else that's not coming to me. Oh, the distance, how far it walks,
Yeah.
indicates to the other bees where it's trying to send them.
Yeah.
And then it'll do a semicircle, come back to where it started, and do it again.
And just it goes over and over again, and
Repeats it.
And then its sort of group of 6 or 10 or 8 bees that are watching
You'll
it.
see in the video the bees all standing there like, in a stadium,
Yeah.
all lined up watching this bee do this dance. Sort of looks like they're sort of cheering it on, but they're actually getting...
That's on your Facebook page,
That's
Tower
on
Hill
the
Beekeeping?
Facebook page. It was done just a couple of days ago. I don't know when you put this video up, but only, what are we? It was late October.
Yeah. Cool.
Is when that video's on there. But I was walking past, there was a swarm on my fruit tree, and I went, yeah, right, there's a swarm on the fruit tree. I'll get that later. And then I looked a bit closer and I saw the bees doing the waggle dance. Now, like you were saying, typically it's to indicate a nectar or pollen source, a fodder source. But in this instance, it would have been the scout bees from the swarm indicating where they wanted to go next.
Yeah.
So I sort of put my patience to rest a little bit and went, hang on a minute, they're about to move on. I better go get one of my buckets and catch this damn swarm before it heads off somewhere that I don't want it to head, i.e. my neighbour's letterbox. So I ran and grabbed my bucket and caught the swarm. But
the dancing, I think, is...
it is.
It would have taken a lot of watching bees to really, like, for scientist-wise, to figure out, that's what they're doing. They're actually, and then that's the, that's the shape, or that's the...
That's how they're communicating. And that's the thing about them, and so many times, so many questions you've asked me, I sort of question how I even think I know this.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you just did. I mean, this is what we think.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm glad I pulled you up on how the bees say it. I mean,
there might be a bee watching this going, no, that's not even...
What are they
not
doing?
Even close.
They're all wrong.
Shit.
I was thinking of making the joke about I might start trying to not talk and just dance my way around and communicate to you.
Possibly could.
Listen, can we wrap this up? I'm going to do a little dance in a second. And you tell me where you need me to drop those bees off by dancing and see how effective we can get it.
Jolly good. All right, Tim Martin, it's been fun. Tim Martin, the beekeeper or the apiarist? What do you like?
Beakett.
A beacon?
A beacon. Oh. One of your questions that you never asked me was, am I an apiarist or a beekeeper?
Right.
Well, I have actually coined the phrase a beacon. A beekeeping accountant. People, it's a bit of a funny one. And a client actually gave me the idea one day, because I wouldn't be nearly this creative, but they said to me, we go to see Tim to get our honey and get our money.
Honey and our money.
Bee man, honey man, and I often say
it works,
to people,
doesn't it?
I'd actually prefer to be known as the accountant. I don't really like the tax man, because that sounds like I'm the collection point for tax.
Yeah.
That's a negative association.
You're just the bad middleman.
So I like to be the money man, but I like the beacon.
Right, so people can come out, they can check you out at Tower Hill Beekeeping on Facebook and whatever else, and they could come out here and they could get some hives. You just do straight up honey sales? People just want some
absolutely.
fresh honey come out here?
Yeah, so I only sell my own honey that I've got from my own hives. I got them for Port Fairy through to Naranda South. Yeah. So I only sell my own honey. And
then we've also got, what's in the basket up there? Is that soap? Or?
So that's some beeswax. That's raw beeswax, and this is why I barely sleep, Aiden, because there's so many interesting facets to beekeeping, and genuinely, I'm obviously a beekeeping business, but we do the retail sales of the hives, the beeswax products, swarm collections, hive relocations, honey sales. It's an incredible product, beeswax. We get some incredible people using it, buying it off us for incredible purposes. Yeah. Furniture polish. Food polish. Food use, the beeswax wraps. Come on, don't tell me you haven't made the beeswax wraps before.
Is that what you use instead of Glad Wrap?
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Yeah, so I use candles, with beeswax candles I want to start making in my spare time.
Yeah, when you get a minute. Yeah.
Incredible product. So maybe if we'd wrapped this up about 3 hours ago, we could have done it. Go in and make some beeswax candles. It's been good, It's been really good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for bearing with me, because we've been trying to do this for a while.
We have.
Good to finally
It wasn't always our fault. We blame COVID for a lot of stuff these days.
I'm a bit more accountable than that. I'd say it was my fault, but anyway.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thanks. Everyone, get out to Tower Hill Beekeeping. Check them out on Facebook and catch up with Tim. You'll get everything you need.
Yeah. Awesome. And a 3-hour conversation to go with.
Yeah, sure.
Right, mate.
See ya.
Catch up.